All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cosmos Society Online Open House Series. I'm Keith DeStone, and our guest today is Bettina Joy de Guzman, who is a multi-instrumentalist, educator, and classicist who performs music based on research on ancient cultures and music, and has been invited all around the world to share her expertise, and has graciously agreed to join us today to talk about performing lyric and music from ancient Greece. So Bettina, before I let you get started, I want to make you pass through this ritual that I do for everyone, which is, how did your interest in the classical world start? Was there some particular moment where the ancient world or ancient music leapt out at you?
Ancient world, I think, has been around in my lifetime since I was a child. At my grandmother, whenever I'd visit my grandmother, because she had these fabulous old books, and my grandmother just turned 100, and so
Wow.
we had books from her dad, and they were still the lovely hardbound ones. And she would point to them and say, "Someday you'll get to read this." And she just showed me some pictures, and they were lovely pictures. They're black and white, and showed me paintings that as I look back, they're really it's showing the classical mythology and so on. And she kind of told me some stories, like, this is
Mhm.
Zeus, do you see that? And I think so. Even from my furthest memories, I had an idea of mythology. But when it comes to music, I'd been singing since I was a kid, and then later it all just cemented together after I did my triple major and then went on to classics.
Okay. Wow. Thank you. It's always nice to hear those little things from our guests. So I should let you begin. Please just go ahead, and if you have something to share, let us know if you need any help with that.
Well, thank you. Hopefully my PowerPoint will be okay. Well, I'm very thrilled to be here with everyone. So as a prelude to the conversation of performance, I'd like to first share my thoughts about ancient Greek poetry and music in general. I see it as part of the broad conversation of comparative studies with regards to literature, religion, musicology, and theater. It's also very much a part of the exchange of information and goods from ancient Mediterranean sea trade routes and migratory influences, and it belongs in conversations of diaspora and reception studies. It's on the performative action of singing songs as a singer I want to focus on today, not the technical aspects, although I will certainly address them. As such, I'd like to begin with an anecdote. The other day, I was singing a song in ancient Greek, then started playing around and singing it in Tagalog. And as I tried to find the right words that fit the meter and the meaning of it in my primary language, just playing around, I started crying. The act of translation of this particular piece made me feel and sense the lyrics differently. The song is often just called the Song of Sikilos, separated from the epitaph that was written with it. As far as I know, no one usually sings the epitaph part because there are no actual notations that are with it, and nobody has even tried to figure out some melody that might go along. But I now see the whole thing seems to flow together. So let's take a look at it. And here I'm going to look at my slideshow here. So.
Bettina, I wonder if we could just backtrack a little. You're actually muted at the moment and we've not heard anything.
Sorry. Okay, there. All right. Okay. So this, can you all hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for letting me know. All right. So this is where I really want to start here. This is the epitaph of Sikilos. It's the oldest complete piece of music with notations and lyrics. We have several fragments. We have something like 60 documents of fragments of ancient Greek music. So we're talking about one that's complete with lyrics. It's around the 1st century CE, maybe even 2nd century CE. Signs are placed above the text that indicate the notes or durations. We'll take a look at it closer. The epitaph was inscribed in a tombstone, a stele, discovered in 1957, having been brought to the attention of scholars in 1883. Lost in 1922, before 1922, the bottom was evened out, and so it could stand upright as a flower pot of all things. It is currently on display at the National Museum of Denmark. And the complete melody was written in alphabetical musical notations seen above the text of the song. So you can see it more clearly here. These are some notations. All right. And a little bit better here. Osonzis, fenu, miden, holos, silipu, prosaligon, esti tozin, totelos, ochronos, apeti. And here is a transliteration of it. Transliterations are based on a tonal center, really, and then they figure out how that works out. I won't get into that so much right now, but so let's take a look at the text. And so I am a stone image. Sikilos placed me here as a long-standing sign of deathless remembrance is the epitaph portion. And the song part, while you live, shine, do not at all grieve. For a short while is life, the end, time demands. Now, I'd always just interpreted that as a sort of gather rosebuds while you may and carpe diem, pluck the day sort of idea. And that's how I sang it in this other live recording, this time after I'd read Walk Skrika, Sydney Allen. The reason I didn't play this much is because my first rendition, it was before I read that, and I was still singing. I was still singing in the style of sort of like a Homeric or even Attic pronunciation, and so I fixed that. I think. Is this the one? Let's see here. Are we still on this? No, sorry. Okay. All right, let's go to the next slide. Okay. This is a live performance of it. Oops. Right. Okay, there you go. Can everybody see this okay and hear the bird songs? Can everybody hear this? All right. Okay, and then we sort of went into a theme and variation, and in a little bit I'll talk about is that something that we should do with this sort of piece of music? Is that considered reconstruction? What is it exactly that's being done? Okay, now as far as the reception part, I truly think that when you hear a song, and it's not necessarily the primary language that you first heard it, I think sometimes you take it in differently. And so here, when I try to find words in Tagalog that pretty much matched it, and I tried to match the meter as well, it gave it a different meaning. And so if I'm singing it, pagbuhay magnining, huwag tuluyang magdalamhati, maikli lang ang buhay natin, ang wakas ang panahon naghihingi. And that strikes memories in me more and affects me more. And so, there's a lot to be said there. Now, when finding this different interpretation of this song, I'd like to quote my friend Greg Nash from his book. Oops, here. Poetry as Performance. That when comparing two traditions that are unrelated to each other historically, parallel lines of interpretation might lead to a deeper understanding of the individual traditions being compared. And when we're talking about oral traditions and we're talking about music that's been around for a very long time, I think that's a very important aspect to consider. So I would like to begin the conversation by posing this question. I'm often asked, am I reconstructing? When I'm performing ancient Greek lyrics set to my own original music, am I doing that? And I think to some small extent I do. That word reconstruction has so many different meanings. Reconstructing what exactly? A specific performance of a specific text, a more generalized time period with a certain style of music? Those are great questions. So I'd like to talk about my process, which may or may not reflect someone else's process when looking at putting ancient Greek lyrics to melody. My thoughts follow a sort of flow chart. So first, if there is an existing document with words and notations, such as a Song of Siculus, then wonderful, I perform it. But what does that mean to actually perform it? It's a set of lyrics with musical notations, which we assume is the melody that is sung, but there's no indication as to what instrument will be used to accompany this melody or instructions that come with it. It can be one person just singing it a cappella. So how should I sing it? Do I want to be as accurate as I can be reproducing singing style of that era and pronunciation as well? Should it be one person playing a lyre and singing it, or someone playing an aulos accompanying a singer? Next, are we supposed to improvise to it like a theme and variation? Where do we perform this? There is no context of performance procedure or space that comes with this particular piece, for instance. We don't even know if it were a popular song set in stone or it's an original piece of poetry. And who is my intended audience? When I'm performing it, I have to consider that. Okay, so now if there is no document of ancient Greek music that has been found associated with the ancient Greek lyrics I would like to sing, okay, then before I set it to music, I try to look at the technical aspects such as meter, pitch, pronunciation. Then I look at melodic patterns from fragments of ancient Greek music that we do have as guidelines. Fortunately, there are tons from Pullman and West documents of ancient Greek music, which had already been transliterated into modern musical notations as best interpreted. And there's a long process that's described how do they decide these things. I look at the melodic shapes for possibilities. And I had included in the sort of homework part of, a few, I think a week ago, I had included the, I'm stopping from saying reconstruction. I think Armand Dango is saying these days, the reimagination of a particular piece. And even then, there are so much left to be interpreted. So now I look at the various tonos or modes as I understand them to see if they seem to fit the poetic meaning I'm trying to convey. And I hesitated earlier on when someone was asking about, modes, because I've had several conversations where it seems like the word tonos is a better word. And what exactly are we talking about? Because modes, that's a really heavy word, and they don't quite match the scales as we know them. It's just really, there's still so much debate what we're talking about. So as I understand them, to see if they seem to fit the poetic meaning I'm trying to convey. So I looked to West's ancient Greek music, 1992, for mode and pitch, and to Alan Walk's Greca for pronunciation through changes in region and time. And finally, to my mentor Armand Dango for advice on meter and many other things through his fabulous blog. Do I follow all these technical rules? Well, it depends on the poem itself. Some lyrics have such interesting meter, it would be impossible to ignore, such as Sophocles' Antigone, particularly the Parados, Hymn to the Sunrise, and the marching anapestic description of the army fighting each other. And sometimes rhythms are so interlocked with poetry itself. When I look at the lyrics, I explore meaning, imagery, and emotion I'm trying to express or make the audiences feel. So let's take a look at this over here. Now for this performance, I'm using my CHS live performance of Sophocles' Antigone, the Parados section in ancient Greek. As audio with some pages, I hope I timed slowly enough, from Mark Griffith's commentaries on Sophocles' Antigone. I also included as an unreleased English version of the Parados, Sun's First Rays, music written by Nikos Xanthoulis, who's the artistic consultant for National Greek Opera, to demonstrate how the difference in language can change, limit, or expand some aspects of expression and reception. So here you have it. Tokaliston hertapiloi, valente baiton, roterum famos, efantes putrocresias, haberas blefaron, Dircaion hyper retron molusa, ton leucas pinargolicon, tota panta pansagiae, figata protromon oxiteroi, kinei sasa halinoi. Meterai, gai pollinekes, atis negion, exam philogon, eigageteinos, oxioklaxon, aetus eistan, os hyperrepta, leukeis ionos, terugis teganos, polon methoplon, xinthi pocomois, poritasin. Sun's first rays, light more beautiful than ever shone on seven-gated thee.
sharpest spur, the armor and warlike shielded our God warrior to frantic retreat. Sun's first rays, light more beautiful. Maddened by Polynices' two-edged arguments, fraternal quarrels, they attacked our land like shrieking eagles with snow-white pinions, weapons fierce as talons, and helmet crested with bristling plumes.
Okay, so that's just really illustrating the difference and the approach once we've switched languages, and it was really fascinating with this piece because I had performed the Parados Sun's First Rays in the Byzantine Museum, the Museum of Byzantine Culture in Thessaloniki with Nikos Xanthoulis. He had put together a sort of Antigone musical comprised of the Stasimons. And he wanted me to sing it, and he wanted me to sing it in English, and we worked together quite a bit. And then just to sort of honor that, when I thought about trying to put music to Antigone, looking at various parts of it, I took a sort of melodic frame that he had, and you could hear it, but that's as far as it could go, because once you map it on, it just won't work, not with the pitches and not with the rhythm. But in English, it was very important that the English audience could understand what was being sung and to feel it in that way. And that's why it started the conversation by, what is the primary language and how are we receiving it? So now, other aspects to consider: the culture, the mythology, the language itself, the sounds, the repetitions, the sensuality and the imagery within, the emotion, and the location of performance and the acoustics, what's going on, and cultural awareness, who is receiving this. There was another time when we performed it, and it was mostly a Greek audience. And so the approach was a little bit different. There were Greek passage, or I should say, the ancient Greek was pronounced in Greek by Nikos, and before I sung in English. It's very interesting. Now here is a fun story that now talks about how does location and instruments and collaborating with someone change interpreting music. So I'd been wanting to meet Thanasis Kleopas, a Greek singer with a very traditional style. He's fabulous. He lived in Santorini, and I just came from several interviews, performances, and I had no idea what to sing with him, but I knew I wanted to sing with him something and record that moment. So anyway, I had very little time. Literally, I could only fly in that evening. The next day, I already had to record some music, and I did want to visit, the archaeological site there. And then he had to work, and then we thought we'd record. So somewhere in there, we had to come up with a song, and I didn't have an instrument because the trip for the plane from Athens to Santorini really, it was so small, and it didn't allow me to bring an instrument along with my filmographer's equipment. So I had to borrow one once I got to Santorini. When you have an instrument, you need to sort of get to know it. I had very little time to get to know this instrument, but there was a musician who owned a Homeric winery and music center, of all things, in Santorini. And he was a friend of the Nassis, and he let me borrow this replica lyre there. And now I was thinking, I wanted to sing the hymn to Pythia and Apollo, parts of it. But I wanted to sing the part of the muses, but I wanted the Nazis to sort of embody the Apollo portion of it. And he told me, I don't at this point sing ancient Greek. I'm not comfortable. And so we just figured out, okay, well, that's okay. You can just sort of, you sing what you feel like singing. And I did decide, okay, we'll do a dactylic hexameter. And now I had to come up with a melody. Okay. And I wanted him to be comfortable. Remember, we only had a very short time. We had 15 minutes to rehearse before climbing this hill so he could, so we could take this moment and film it. And it turned out to be so windy that we couldn't actually film the song here. So we had to film it someplace else the next day, which is an interesting thing unto itself. So he tuned it. I didn't know what tune he was going to put it in. And I wanted him to tune it to something he was comfortable singing in, a scale he was comfortable singing in. And I went with that. And we came up with a song in like 15 minutes, a melody. And anyway, and then the next day, we performed here. And so we had a total of maybe 45 minutes to practice. But here we are, it's a live recording.
Este formigt sollet dus arcades huios, forming gigla furibus pute petrei sang, ambra de mate contelum de toia de formix, crusteo bir trucan hene peimere sang. Antigratan stormele kittaris garne, musamenat pasang bone opicale. Himnes raten toram brotana habs bobo, tlen musaneos hontes pantanum toisit poisni.
Okay, so I mean, that was pretty much a jam session is what we had done. And I wouldn't exchange that moment for the world. Is it correct? Is it incorrect to do that? It felt right. So again, as Greg Nash had said, just as a nightingale goes about his performance, so also the poet goes about his composition by performing it, by moving it. In this light, mouvance is the same thing as recomposition and performance. And I feel that that's what we were doing at that very moment. And he felt, Thanasius felt very good about it. And it meant a lot to me because it is his own heritage. And yeah, I think that was a good thing. And so finally, I find that the musical instrument or instruments which I think can best accompany the lyrics I will sing or speak and render emotion during solo performance moments, I do try to find them. Here is a clip of music I composed using several instruments to convey the Odyssey Rhapsody 24. Actually, this first one is just one instrument. This first clip is narrating the scene of Achilles' funeral in English. And this is different because I'm not just singing, I'm narrating. Now I'm narrating the scene in English, but then I switch to ancient Greek at a certain point.
Come from the sea to mourn her dead son. When he said that, the troops settled down. Then the daughters of the old man of the sea stood all around you and wailed piteously. And they dressed you in immortal clothing. And the muses, all nine, chanted the dirge, singing responsively in beautiful voices. You couldn't have seen a dry eye in the army. So poignant was the song of the muses. For 17 days, we mourned you like that. Men and gods together. On the 18th day, we gave you to the fire, slaughtering sheep and horned cattle around you.
So there, you notice I'm not trying to go with a rhythm because the rhythm of English is different, but I'm playing with the idea that we don't actually know if the music was continuous. Was it actually parallel melody with the singing? What's going on? And there's so many debates about that. We actually we really don't know. Okay, so now here's the other one where I put in lots of different instruments. I had pre-recorded for the Odyssey Rhapsody 24 Reading Greek Tragedy Online Odyssey Around the World event. So I pre-recorded Sardinian double pipe, similar to a dialis, and I'll be showing my instruments right after this, I promise. And it's a reference to Athena's dislike for the instrument, just as she was disliking what was going on there. I put in a Portuguese berimbau to mimic the sound of a bowstring. It's very similar to a bow. And I used my pedal harp, I clapped my hands, I played a tambourine, played a frame drum. And so this is this is the mood I was trying to convey for this.
Son of Arcesius, my dearest comrade, say a prayer to Zeus and his gray-eyed daughter, and then cast your long-shadowed spear.
Pallas Athena breathed great strength into him, and with a prayer to Zeus's grey-eyed daughter, Laertes cast his long-shadowed spear and hit Jupiter square in the helmet.
Bronze bore through Rome, and Achilles trod it to the ground, his armor clattering.
Odysseus and his glorious son charged the front lines, thrusting hard with their swords and spears. They would have killed every last man, not one of them would have gone home, and not Athena, daughter of the storm cloud, given voice to a cry that stopped them all cold.
Ithacans, lay down your arms now, and go your ways with no more bloodshed.
Thus Athena, and they turned pale with fear. The weapons dropped from their trembling hands and fell to the ground as the goddess's voice sent shockwaves through them. They turned back toward the city and ran for their lives. With a roar, the great, long-suffering Odysseus gathered himself and swept after them.
Like a soaring raptor.
At that moment, Zeus' son,
And that's really it for all the clips. I wanted to, I tried to find various clips that was trying to show different ways to interpret. And is any of that reconstruction? Is it just pure comparative studies? Is it just typological parallels? You know, what is all that? And those are good questions. And you know, the purest reconstruction I've heard is actually like Armand Dangour's, where he's literally taking the fragments and trying to get as close as possible to the tonos and the modes that are there, and the phrases that are there, and he's trying to fill in the gaps. But what I'm trying to do is a very different thing, where I'm trying to connect various parts of all this with the audience of today. And I think that's where I have to draw from several different aspects and characteristics of music and lyric to do that. So I'm that's it. I'm open to questions now. So
Great, thanks so much. Those were wonderful clips. I know I've got some questions, but anybody else? Let me turn this to gallery view, so it'll be more conversational. All right, first question, come forth. Well, while everyone's being so shy, I will ask. I wanted to know more about the musician Thanasis Kleopas, with whom you performed. You said that he is a very traditional performer, and I just wondered what kind of tradition, I mean, do you have in mind here? Is it something that we would call traditional modern Greek music?
He seems to be drawing from quite a bit of folk melodies, and infusing it with a lot of mythological references. So if you ever check out his channel, it's absolutely fabulous. So he will take, you know, themes of mythology, and many of his songs are titled with gods, and then he'll sing. And very recently he started taking portions of ancient Greek and playing with it. And I like to think that the beginning of that was maybe 2 years ago, because before that he didn't really dabble in ancient Greek. So it's always just his interpretations of, and it was very always locational. So so many of his videos, you could feel the setting of it, you know, that there are streams, there's he likes to do it live, and it's like he's really trying to capture the feeling of this is Greece, and these are our traditions, and this is our culture, and so a little bit of all those elements. So I think it
So
was.
these were pre-existing folk melodies, if I understood you correctly.
Yeah, I think so. And some pre-existing folk melodies, but other new ones. The melodies inspired him to create.
Right. And what was that instrument he was playing? I couldn't decide whether it looked very ancient or what.
Oh
It
yes,
looked kind of similar to yours, but
it's similar, isn't it? So his instrument. Okay, hang on a moment. Now I'm going to grab something here. So his instrument was sort of designed, similar to this. Mine's rather elaborate, and it's very resonant. Now his is this is not an actual tortoiseshell, but it's just made to look like one. His is just unapologetically wooden, and it has, I think, 13 strings on his. So it's modernized in that way, but based off of this sort of construction.
okay, so an ancient model in a way, but
Yes,
retooled.
It's an absolute hybrid of a lyre. It's still a lyre, but the instrument makers, the Komartsis family, it very much has been experimenting with having their instruments, the replica lyres, be played by modern musicians. And so they will adjust, and they will they will customize according to your needs, and even like have plugins and so on. So I haven't done anything like that. I try to just kind of say, can you I would just like the ones that look like the vase, and the descriptions that we know that we can so far tell. And there's so many variations. It's actually really interesting. Like some you think, oh, it's four, there are 4 strings, but then many would insist, no, there's 7. So my friend Nikos Xantoulis, for instance, he's the artistic consultant for the Greek National Opera. He wrote a book, the ancient Greek lyre, and it's 7 strings, and he's very insistent. It's 7 strings, and that's what he's pretty convinced that looking at all the research, that it seems to be the standard, and from his interpretation, anything more, it's not a good thing. Anything less, it limits you too much, and so on. And I had actually copy edited that book into English years ago, and we're working on a new one, an updated version. And so I have several conversations where he'd ask me, so what do you think of that? It's 7 strings. And I could sit there and give you quotes on like how many different ancient authors decided, I'm holding up this ancient Greek musical West, seem to sort of contradict each other about number of strings are good, which they'll say, oh, okay, he played with this number of strings, it sounded bad, or he played beautifully, with a gorgeous performance, and there were more than 7 strings, and so on. So there's just it's really arbitrary in the end for me. I wasn't there.
That's our problem.
We can only go with
ancient music.
Fragments of music, and again, we come back to, okay, we have fragments of music. Is it supposed to be played in parallel melody with an instrument, or is it supposed to be just sung, or what are we working with here? And that's why with that last pre-recorded song where I just went all out, and I had a bunch of different instruments. Here's one of the instruments that I had used, and my face would look like a blowfish, like Athena was describing. If I to produce a good sound, you actually have to, with this This is a Sardinian instrument, but it resembles a dialos, and this is pure reed. My friend Roberto Catalano, he's in Sicily right now. He actually cuts the reeds himself from his backyard. He grows the reeds, and he makes them. And I had actually broken. Let's see. The first, there's a set he had given me, and he's like, you need to loosen it more. And I said, like, if I do that, it's going to break. And he goes, no, go ahead, just unzoom here, I'll help you. And I kept loosening it, and it broke, and right in front of him. And my expression was like, he said, it's okay, I'll ship you a new one. I said, oh, okay. But they're delicate, but they make a huge sound. The other instrument I played with was this berimbau, but it's devoid of all the usual accoutrements that come with it. It's a Portuguese instrument, because I wanted the feeling of I wanted the sound of the bowstring, to sort of evoke Odysseus with the bowstring, and there were this frame drum, there's tambourine, and so on. So it was a very imagined thing. But again, do we know for sure that there were not other musicians that accompanied them? We only have, certain things to go with, like we have, okay, so Odyssey 8, Demodocus. And believe me, I had read that passage over and over again, because I'd imagined myself as a traveling bard, and it would be nice if someone gave me a nice silver chair to sit on and offer me a basket of food and a nice table and a drink before, and then and sea games afterwards, and then play the instruments while they dance. That sounds fabulous. But that's an oral tradition. Was it historically accurate? I don't know. Well, how much of that was fiction? I don't know. So there's just really so much we don't know. Yes.
Sarah.
Yes, Bettina, you said that there were quite a lot of inscriptions with notation. Are these mostly sort of permanent structures, like you were demonstrating, stone and bronze? And what sort of genre are they mostly? Are they all the same kind of thing, or is there a real mixture of different genres?
Well, okay, so we see them in this is a completely different PowerPoint. I do have actually all this. We see them in vase paintings, where there's even, for instance, a little description of right above. It's like seems to be indicating rhythms. That's fun. And then we see there's even a wall panel, and the words were, I think, I gotta be careful with this, to different dialect that I'm used to seeing, but you had notations by according to West, as early as third century BC, 3rd century CE. They were already standardizing notations. And when I say that, I don't mean like, we have a C and there's a set notation for that. Their notation structure seems to be in terms of a tonal center, and then more like what we would call the solfege system. So you have a tonal center, and then the notations are based off of the intervals, and so that's how it's understood. And that's why I do consult. I get rather nervous sometimes with performance, and like how off is this? How accurate is this? Should I worry about accuracy? And yet we do have to talk about it a little. So like with Epitaph of Sikilas, I thought, okay, well, I can sing what West had, how West had transliterated it. But it seems like other people choose a different key, but same mode, right? Like the mode as we understand it. And Armand Dangour had said, yeah, doesn't really, I mean, it matters, but it doesn't matter. We don't really know. We're pretty confident that, D major is about right. But I mean, as long as it's the same mode, I think we're good.
What type of texts are they notating? Are they all kind of like elegies, for instance, you were talking about, or
yes. Lots of papyrus fragments. And they are, did I happen to bring it here? I had the documents, Ancient Greek Music, I had it in my hand. What did I do with it? Okay, but yes, most of it is papyrus, and they're fragments. They're just fragments, and there are more complete ones, and it's wonderful when it is, but yeah, because of the fact that we have like 60, that's enough to work. Yes, thank you. Yes, exactly. Oh my gosh, I rely on that so much when I start having doubts, like, am I even in the framework of this? How, if I want it to sound kind of authentic, what are the pitches that were being used maybe to indicate when it's an accent, what is the leap? How big of a leap can I make that's still okay? When, does an accent grave mean that it goes down? And Armand was saying, no, accent grave or accent aigu, pitch goes up. Really? Okay. How about a circumflex? What about that? Oh, well, that it goes up and then down. Okay. Do I have to follow that all the time? No, because they didn't. And so when you look at the different documents, you see that they don't always follow it. And there was I had written it down someplace where, even in the descriptions, it was something like someone had noticed, it seems that in this particular song, the lyrics were driving it and not even the accent marks, like that was being ignored for the sake of the melody. And those are the from the fragments themselves. And so so it seems like they were even breaking those kind of rules, if there were even any rules. As anything, when you're looking at a language, right, when we're trying to reconstruct a language, we give it rules. And then when we see this poet, from that time, we see it and we go, well, he's breaking those rules. Well, gosh darn it, he's not doing it right. Wait a moment. Is he not doing it right, or have we been interpreting it incorrectly? All those questions come up.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope I answered that somewhat-ish.
But I see that you had a question as well.
Yeah, I was wondering what we know about the pain, the song that the Greeks sung before they went into battle, like in the 10,000.
Like the any of the paeans?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's I think really, I what do we know about it? Okay. There's definitely the extant music to that. They're sung usually in a chorus. Do we know if it's, how many? There's usually some sort of, there have been some writing about how many, I think as many as like 100 sang it together. And it seems to be indicating that there's men who sang it. But I think, again, there's, we'd have to be careful with, because we're relying on the descriptions of historians. How much of it, did they record? What did they say? We do have the melodies for some of the paeans, which is wonderful. So we have the fragments of those, and it seems like they were played with the aulos because it's loud, and so if you have that audience, a large audience, the aulos would be the one driving it. that seems to make sense. And especially if you're trying to drive it along with a bunch of singers singing with you, then the aulos is your choice and not a lyre, which is very quiet in an open setting. And if it's a competition thing, you know, when I compare something like that description with a Demodocus description, where he's in an open field and he's playing the lyre, and it's, you know, it's a hollow lyre. It seems to be pretty much the, you know, a hollow wooden lyre. And this is nice in a hall, but outside you can't hear it. You can't really hear it. So I am convinced that they did need a sort of pitch leader, and the pitch leader would be playing an aulos or even a diaulos. Yeah, I think those are some things we can definitely say.
Thank you.
If I may. Bettina, you're an extraordinary musician, and I think you have probably a better idea of how to put it all together than anyone, you know, because you actually play a range of string and wind instruments. I was just recently reading the second Stasimon of Euripides' Phoenician Women, and he talks about, I mean, the chorus talks about Amphion and Zethus building the walls of Thebes with the forminx and the lyre. And, you know, from what you were saying, you know, maybe the forminx and the lyre was giving it the final touch.
Yeah, absolutely. And isn't it interesting too that they didn't even have a standardized word for it? They had lira, forminga, kithara, right? And so, and then what, you know, and I tried to look up, okay, when they're saying a kithara, is it always matching a certain description? Is it always going to look, you know, like this? Right. By the way, look how huge this is compared to this fabulous looking thing here. You know, and we don't even know, you know, what's the use of this? These here, is it like a sort of, is it to make it do that funky thing? Or was it just purely ornamental? You know, what are these? What the heck? Is it just for show, just to look great? What are we doing here? Or is it actually serving a function? So you have a, you know, then you get something like, as you said, Jack, you know, the forminx and the lyre. Okay, are we talking about two different things, or are they just basically saying he has a different lyre from that guy? So two different forms of lyres. And then, if I may, you know, let me just point this out, that we did have later on, I think comfortably around 3rd century AD, this made its way to Greece, the pandura, and it's fretted so that we can have the microtones. Oh gosh, let's not even get started with microtones, right? As Armand had said, and I quote him a lot because he really has helped out. When I asked him, you know, this microtone business, because the indications and the musical tone notations are, it's indicated with an arrow going up. What's going on? You know, how are we to understand how microtoned is this? Is this quarter, or what is it? And he said, you know, if you just take a sound, and then you change your mouth, he said, you're already microtoning. I thought, oh my goodness. Okay, so he said it's really, it's not that difficult. It's not that difficult, you know, to imagine it. And then, you know, just the tongue placement, you know, and that's it. So they really played a lot with that. But again, you know, we weren't there. I don't know what influences each particular musician had. I don't even know who Homer was, for one thing. You know, what are the sounds that people were hearing? How different exactly did Sappho sing? You know, I did have a Sappho rendition, fragment 1, and I really tried to stay with her rhythm structure, which is difficult, by the way, along with the pitch marks, to make it sound musical to me. And I had to be careful with that because, you know, maybe a smaller range was musical and beautiful to people at the time, but for me to feel it convincingly and try to give it to a more general audience, I had to be a little bit more romantic, I guess. But I kept with her very interesting rhythm. That was difficult. And, you know, but how was I supposed to sing it? And should I not sing operatically? So I tried not to. I tried to sing with more you know, I was trying to do more of that style. So I know I did try to play around just so people can have a different understanding. And I did it mostly for my students and myself as a student, like remembering me as a student. When I said, how does this sound like? How was Homer sung? And back then, 15 years ago, all I had was like, you know, Stefan Hagel's, this one CD, you know, and it was like a copy of a copy of a copy. So I'm not even sure. And it was his reimagining of it. And it's fabulous because, you know, years later, I met Stefan and had a great conversation with him. And he talked to my students about ancient Greek music and his studies of it. And it's great now that I can bring in people from various parts of the globe and can talk to my students and describe their research and their understanding of ancient Greek music and their approaches to it and their reconstruction or reimagining it, or, you know, however they want to say it, which was not available to me 15 years ago. And for some of my students, when they heard, you know, the reimagining of the Orestes that Armand had done for his university, for Oxford University, some of my students were like, that's very interesting music. That doesn't sound anything like Greek music today. Nothing at all. You know, they're thinking. And I think I agree. I think it doesn't sound like it to me either. But you know, but that's what the notation is that we have. And so we'd have to sort of, you know, go with that because that's our evidence. And we can't be comparing ancient Greek to modern Greek because that's many thousands of years later with so much other cultural influences that had been infused today. We don't know what we're looking at anymore. But it's also important to get the Greek opinion, and when I say Greek, I mean modern Greek, the Greek opinion of, you know, how are you hearing the ancient Greek music? That's very important. It's a very, you know, you can't leave Greek musicians out of this conversation about ancient Greek music. You cannot. I'm really sorry. It looks like I actually have to go teach now.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Well, it's time for us to wrap up anyway. So, Bettina, thank you so much. This was fascinating.
Thank you. And, you know, please feel free to ask me questions, and I will and continue this conversation some other way. So, thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Very exciting.